The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was in utter chaos. Chaos so profound it made a supernova seem like a tranquil afternoon picnic. Order. Order in the chamber. High Counselor Zena Starweaver's voice thundered through the magnificent hall, her crystalline form flickering with stressed-out rainbow hues. It might have been amusing if I hadn't been busy calculating how far I could get before this impending catastrophe engulfed us all. Oh, pardon me, I should introduce myself. I'm Ambassador Klex Brightheart, representative of the Luminari Confederation, currently witnessing the most powerful beings in the galaxy unravel in sheer panic. Why, you ask? Because someone went and did the one thing we've all been warned never, ever to do. They killed a human. And not just any human, Captain Amanda Stone of the Earth Science vessel Curiosity. Yes, that Amanda Stone. The one who recently developed the cure for the Relian plague. The one with 3 kids waiting for her back on Mars colony. The one everyone described as one of the kindest, most admirable representatives of her species. The Crimson Nebula Pirates claim it was an accident, squeaked representative blip of the silicon consciousness, their holographic form flickering nervously. They didn't know humans were. What, snapped Ambassador Trill Stardancer of the Celestial Accord, her bioluminescent tentacles coiling in agitation. Weren't the warning beacons we installed on every major trade route clear enough? Don't engage in hostile actions against human vessels. How much simpler could we have made it? I leaned back in my hover seat, observing the diplomatic meltdown. The warning beacons had been my idea, actually not that anyone was giving me credit for trying to avoid this exact scenario. And yet, here we were, watching the galaxy's most advanced civilizations bicker like fledglings over the last nutrient pod. Perhaps, rumbled Elder Quantum Thought Pattern 7 of the Machine Collective, their mechanical tones even and unperturbed, we should discuss an appropriate response to the human reaction. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Even the spores of the fungal consciousness halted their lazy drift. What reaction? Someone asked from the back. I didn't bother looking. My attention was on High Counselor Starweaver, whose crystalline form had shifted to a particularly troubling shade of deep purple. According to our latest reports, she said, her voice unnaturally calm, every human colony in the galaxy has gone silent. Every trade route they maintained has been suspended. Every diplomatic channel has been closed except for one. The central hologram activated, displaying a simple text communication in the human's primitive binary language. Diplomatic relations temporarily suspended pending proportional response to acts of piracy against Earth citizens. Normal operations will resume once justice has been served. Proportional response? Chirped a representative from the Avon Leagues. What does that mean? I couldn't help myself, I laughed. Every eye optical sensor and sensory appendage in the chamber turned toward me. Oh, you poor, sweet summer nebulas, I said, wiping tears from my primary visual organs. You really don't know much about human history, do you? High Counselor Starweaver's crystalline structure chimed ominously. Ambassador Brightheart, if you have relevant information. Relevant? Try crucial. While you've all been trading with humans, marveling at their primitive but charming technology, did any of you bother to study their military history? The blank stares answered that question. I sighed, pulling up my data display. Humans have a saying, mess with the bull, you get the horns, except in this case, it's more like mess with the species that perfected the art of war before leaving their own planet. Another silence, this one heavy with dawning horror. Surely they wouldn't, began Blip, their voice trembling. Want to bet your silicon processors on that? I replied. Because the last time someone killed a human diplomat? Oh wait, this is the first time. Everyone else was smart enough to read the warning labels. As if on cue, the chamber's emergency alerts blared. The central hologram shifted to a tactical display of a massive fleet emerging from Earth space ships, unlike the peaceful vessels we were used to. These ships made our most advanced warships look like children's toys. Well, I said, settling back to watch the spectacle, this should be interesting. I hope the Crimson Nebula Pirates enjoyed their brief moment of victory because they were about to learn exactly why humans put warning labels on everything. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos once again, and this time, even High Counselor Starwaver couldn't bring order. We all just sat there, watching as humanity prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson about consequences. And I just smiled, knowing I had the best seat in the house for what was about to unfold, the most entertaining diplomatic crisis in recent galactic history. Sometimes being right is its own reward, especially when you get to watch everyone else realize just how wrong they were. Let me take you back to the moment when everything went wrong. Not that I was there, I value my molecular structure too much for that kind of excitement. But thanks to the black box recordings recovered from the Curiosity, we all got to watch this disaster unfold in stunning clarity. The Crimson Nebula Pirates, led by the notoriously arrogant Captain Rax Bloodfang. Yes, that name had been tracking the Curiosity for 3 standard cycles. They'd watched as the research vessel collected samples from the gas giants in the Proxima sector, conducted their quaint little experiments, and generally went about their business with what Captain Rax later called adorable primitive efficiency. The attack itself was textbook piracy if your textbook was written by an overconfident fool. The Pirates' flagship, the Eternal Shadow again, with the names dropped out of hyperspace alongside 2 support vessels surrounding the Curiosity like predators cornering prey. "Attention, Earth vessel," Rax broadcasted, his mandibles clicking with barely contained glee. "This is Captain Rax Bloodfang of the Crimson Nebula Fleet. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with unfortunate consequences." The response from the Curiosity was typically human, direct, professional, and, in hindsight, far more patient than the pirates deserved. "This is Captain Amanda Stone of the Earth science vessel Curiosity," came the calm reply. "We are a research vessel operating under Article 7 of the Galactic Peace Accord. We have minimal valuable cargo and a crew of scientists. I suggest you reconsider your actions." The pirates, demonstrating all the wisdom of carbon-based life forms trying to photosynthesize, laughed. The recording captured their amusement in crystal-clear quality, with several even making betting pools on how quickly the primitive humans would surrender. "That's not what our scans show," Captain Stone chimed in, Rax's second-in-command, Vic Shadowstrike. "Those medical supplies you're carrying will fetch a pretty price on the black market." The medical supplies in question were the cure for the Relian plague, the very cure that Captain Stone and her team had spent 3 years developing, destined for colonies ravaged by the outbreak. "They're needed for dying children," Captain Stone's voice hardened. "This is your final warning, withdraw your vessels." The pirates responded by opening fire. Not a full barrage, mind you, just warning shots, the kind you fire when you're so convinced of your superiority that you forget the first rule of the galaxy: never underestimate humans. The Curiosity's shields held. Sure, human technology might look primitive to our advanced eyes, but there's a reason they've survived this long. Captain Stone's next transmission was delivered with what humans call a sigh. "Very well," she said, transmitting ship's log and incident report to Earth Command. "Activating emergency protocols." That's when Rax made his fatal mistake. Instead of recognizing the warning for what it was, he ordered his gunners to target the Curiosity's engines. The shots hit, disabling the research vessel's propulsion system. What happened next was captured in excruciating detail by the Eternal Shadow's own security feeds. The boarding party, led by Vic Shadowstrike, cut through the Curiosity's airlock, expecting to find cowering scientists. Instead, they found Captain Stone and her security team in full environmental suits, armed with what the pirates dismissively considered primitive projectile weapons. "Last chance," Captain Stone said through her suit speakers. "Leave now." Vix, displaying all the survival instinct of a meteor heading toward a black hole, ordered his team to open fire. The resulting firefight lasted exactly 47 seconds. When it was over, 3 pirates were dead, 2 were wounded, and Captain Stone had taken a plasma bolt directly to her chest, while pushing one of her scientists out of the line of fire. The ship's medical AI recorded her last words. "Tell my kids, tell them I love them, and tell Earth, tell them to make it count." Rax, watching through Vix's helmet feed, finally realized his mistake, but by then, it was too late. The Curiosity's distress beacon had been broadcasting since the first shot was fired, and its quantum entanglement communicator had already transmitted everything to Earth Command. The Pirates, still congratulating themselves on acquiring valuable cargo, dismissed the loss of life as unfortunate but necessary. They even had the audacity to send a message to the Galactic Council claiming the human vessel had aggressively resisted a standard inspection. You know what the truly tragic part is? If they'd just spent 10 minutes researching human history, they might have survived. They might have learned about concepts like proportional response or never leave an enemy behind. They might have discovered why humans put warning labels on everything from their coffee cups to their starships. But they didn't. They saw what they wanted to see, a primitive species in a basic research vessel. They never questioned why such a primitive species had spread across the galaxy so quickly. They never wondered why every major power in the galaxy had non-aggression pacts with Earth. Now they were about to learn what happens when you mistake humanity's patience for weakness, when you confuse their willingness to talk for an inability to fight, when you kill one of their own and think you can just walk away. The humans have a saying, "Don't poke the sleeping bear." The Crimson Nebula Pirates didn't just poke the bear, they killed one of its cubs. And now the bear is wide awake and coming for them. Have you ever witnessed the moment just before a supernova? That perfect stillness before a star tears itself apart? That's what it felt like in the days following Captain Stone's death, a silence so complete, so absolute, that it made your nerve endings tingle with anticipation. The first sign came from Novera, Earth's largest off-world colony. Their regular shipments of quantum processors were cancelled, the weekly entertainment broadcasts abruptly terminated, and the bustling trade ports, usually teeming with thousands of alien merchants, emptied in less than a solar day. Routine maintenance, their automated response systems claimed. Right. And I'm a photosynthesizing Plutonian. Next came Mars Colony. Their famous universities, which had been teaching advanced human medical techniques to alien students, suddenly announced an extended holiday. All non-human personnel were politely but firmly escorted to the nearest transport hubs. The colony's massive dome shields, once transparent, turned opaque. Environmental systems upgrade was the official explanation. Even Luna Base, humanity's first off-world settlement, went dark. The massive tourist attractions, which usually drew millions of visitors, closed. Diplomatic offices were relocated to temporary facilities that nobody could quite locate. I watched from my office in the Galactic Council's Tower of Harmony as the reports flooded in. Trade vessels reported human ships quietly departing their regular routes. Monitoring stations noted increased activity around Earth's military installations. The humans were making their moves, but no one could see the full picture. "They're running scared," suggested diplomat Zorax of the Silicon Consciousness during one of our emergency sessions, withdrawing to protect themselves from further attacks. I had to bite my secondary mandible to keep from laughing. "Tell me, esteemed colleague," I said, "when you scan human entertainment broadcasts, do you ever watch their nature documentaries? You know, those fascinating videos where they study their planet's predators? There's this magnificent creature called a tiger. When it hunts, it doesn't charge in roaring. It goes quiet. It goes still." The implications made Zorax's crystalline structure vibrate with discomfort. Our long-range sensors started picking up unusual energy signatures from the Sol system, the kind of energy signatures that suggested large-scale fleet movements. But every time we sent diplomatic inquiries, we received the same polite, pre-recorded message. "Earth thanks you for your concern. Normal operations will resume once current security matters are resolved." Then came the truly strange part. Human civilians, usually found throughout the galaxy as traders, teachers, and tourists, began quietly booking passage back to Earth-controlled space. Not all at once, no. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it was a steady trickle, like water flowing uphill before a tsunami. The Merchants Guild reported that humans were liquidating their off-world assets at suspiciously reasonable prices. Academic institutions noted that human researchers were submitting their final papers and concluding their experiments ahead of schedule. Entertainment venues reported that human performers were canceling their upcoming shows, citing family emergencies. "Perhaps we should send a delegation?" suggested Ambassador Trill Stardancer during one particularly tense council session. "Show our support for their loss?" "Oh yes," I replied, watching the latest sensor readings from Earth's military shipyards. "I'm sure they'd love a bunch of diplomats dropping by right now, just like how a plasma storm loves a radiation leak." In its infinite wisdom, the Galactic Council decided to wait and see. After all, what could one species do? Humans were still considered relatively new to the galactic stage. Their technology, while impressive in some areas, was thought to be centuries behind the major powers. That's when our deep space monitors picked up something intriguing. The humans' orbital shipyards, previously used to build research vessels and cargo ships, had gone into overdrive. Power consumption tripled, raw material shipments quadrupled, and the energy signatures, let's just say they weren't building more science vessels. "How are they doing this so quickly?" demanded High Counselor Starweaver during an emergency briefing. "Their industrial capacity was never measured, never accurately assessed," I interrupted. "Did anyone actually verify what the humans were capable of, or did we all just assume that because they were polite and focused on trade and research, they couldn't build warships?" The silence that followed was deafening. Through it all, the Crimson Nebula Pirates continued their operations, boasting about their victory over the primitive human vessel. They even started advertising the stolen medical supplies, apparently unaware or unconcerned about the storm they had awakened. But I knew. I had studied human history. I'd read about their wars, their strategies, their capacity for both mercy and ruthless efficiency. This silence wasn't fear, it was purpose. It was preparation. The humans had perfected the art of war long before they reached the stars. They weren't retreating. They were positioning their pieces. They weren't hiding. They were hunting. And soon, very soon, the galaxy was going to learn why every human vehicle, every human product, every human installation came with those famous warning labels. As I sat in my office, watching another group of human civilians quietly board a transport back to Earth-controlled space, I couldn't help but smile. The storm was coming, and when it broke, it was going to be spectacular. The first strike came without warning. Well, technically there were plenty of warnings, but nobody was smart enough to read them properly. The Crimson Nebula Pirates' primary base on Xerxes 7 gone. Not destroyed, not bombarded, just gone, as if someone had reached down and plucked it from the surface of the planet. The council chamber erupted into chaos when the news arrived. I watched as the supposedly advanced species around me lost their collective minds, trying to understand what had happened. "Impossible," screeched Representative Blip. "Our sensors showed no approaching ships, no energy signatures, no warning, no warning." I couldn't help but laugh, pulling up the original human message on my datapad. "What exactly did you think proportional response meant? A strongly worded letter?" That's when General Marcus Chen of the Earth Defense Force decided to make things interesting. His hologram appeared in every major government facility across the galaxy simultaneously, not just in the designated communication areas, but everywhere. The fact that he could override our most sophisticated security systems like they were children's toys should have been our second warning. "Greetings," he said, looking every bit the professional soldier in his black uniform. "I'm here to announce that Earth has begun operations to address recent acts of piracy against our citizens. We appreciate your cooperation in staying clear of designated combat zones." Ambassador Trill Stardancer's tentacles twisted in confusion. "What combat zones?" Right on cue, every data screen in the galaxy lit up with a map showing dozens of red zones scattered across known space. The Crimson Nebula Pirates territory had been divided into neat, organized sections, each with a scheduled date and time listed beside it. For transparency, General Chen continued, his expression neutral but somehow terrifying. We will be systematically eliminating pirate threats in the marked areas according to the posted schedule. Any non-hostile vessels are advised to maintain a minimum safe distance of 2 light-years from these zones during operations. The Council watched in stunned silence as the first recording from Xerxes 7 played. A human vessel completely unlike their usual designs simply appeared in orbit. No hyperspace window, no warning. It just was there. The ship was angular, painted in a material that seemed to drink in light, and bristling with weapons our sensors couldn't even begin to categorize. "That's not possible," whispered Techmaster Prime of the Silicon Consciousness. "Their stealth technology was assessed at level 2. This is at least level 8. Funny thing about humans, I mused, watching as more footage poured in. They tend to keep their best toys hidden until they need them. The next few hours were a master class in military precision. Right on schedule, at the exact times listed, human ships appeared near pirate installations. Some bases surrendered immediately. Those pirates got to keep their molecules in their preferred configuration. The ones who resisted, well, let's just say the cleanup crews are still trying to figure out what happened to them. But their weapons protested. Ambassador Quantum Thought Pattern 7. The energy readings are off the charts. They're using technology that shouldn't exist. I couldn't help myself. Shouldn't exist or shouldn't exist in human hands? Because I'm starting to think we made some rather dangerous assumptions about our friends from Earth. The humans' ground forces were even more impressive. Teams of soldiers in powered armor that made our best combat suits look like leisure wear. They moved with impossible speed, their weapons cutting through the pirates' most advanced shields like they weren't even there. One particular team, led by Commander Blake Rodriguez, became something of a legend within hours. Surveillance footage showed them infiltrating a pirate stronghold on Nebula's Edge, a facility that had repelled full military assaults from 3 different species. Time elapsed from insertion to total control, 6 minutes and 23 seconds. "This can't be right," muttered High Counselor Starweaver, her crystalline form flickering with distress. The humans, they were peaceful. They were focused on science and exploration. They were peaceful, I corrected, because they chose to be. Kind of like how a fusion reactor is peaceful until you remove the containment fields. Director Na Patel of Earth Intelligence made that point clear in her only public statement. For those wondering about our sudden military capability, I should point out that Earth has been at peace not because we couldn't fight, but because we preferred not to. Recent events have necessitated a change in policy. The pirates learned this lesson the hard way. Those who surrendered were treated humanely, processed through proper legal channels, and imprisoned according to galactic law. Those who resisted, they got to experience firsthand why humans had so many warning labels about themselves. By the end of the first day, 30% of the Crimson Nebula's operations had been neutralized. The humans didn't just destroy their targets, they systematically dismantled them. Each strike recovered stolen goods, freed slaves, and secured evidence of other criminal operations. It was like watching a surgeon remove a tumor, precise and methodical. The most terrifying part, the humans were clearly still holding back. Our best analysts estimated that they were using maybe 15% of their actual military capacity, just enough to make their point without triggering a wider conflict. "But why hide all this?" asked a junior diplomat during an emergency session. "Why pretend to be less advanced?" I looked around the council chamber at all these supposedly superior beings struggling to process what they were witnessing. "Tell me, esteemed colleagues, if you knew your friendly neighbor had enough firepower to vaporize a small moon, would you have treated them differently? Would you have been so quick to dismiss them as primitive?" The silence that followed was broken by another update. The humans had just taken out the pirates' largest shipyard. The facility had been completely surrounded by a field of quantum mines, protected by automated defense systems and hidden inside an artificial nebula. Total time from attack initiation to facility capture, 8 minutes and 42 seconds. Perhaps, suggested Ambassador Trill Stardancer, her tentacles now a pale shade of terror, we should review our diplomatic protocols regarding Earth. I just smiled. The show was only getting started. It's funny how quickly a galaxy full of supposed superior beings can change their tune. The emergency session of the Council stretched into its third day as report after report confirmed what I had been trying to tell them for years. Humans weren't just another emerging species. They were what my people called a sleeping giant. We've recovered historical data from their public networks, announced Techmaster Prime, their voice modulation unit struggling to maintain composure. Their entire history is fascinating, I suggested, enjoying this far too much. A comprehensive catalog of increasingly creative ways to break things. The holographic display filled with images from human history, military campaigns, tactical innovations, weapons development. Earth's own records, freely available to anyone who bothered to look, painted a picture that had the Council squirming in their seats. Before they even developed powered flight, continued Techmaster Prime, they had weapons that could level cities. They had bombs that could crack continents. And now we know what they've been doing, while we were all patting ourselves on our various appendages for being so advanced. They didn't stop developing weapons when they reached the stars, I finished. They just got quieter about it. The data continued to pour in. Those quaint human research vessels. Turns out they could convert to combat configuration in under 3 minutes. The peaceful trading posts, hidden military bases with enough firepower to hold off a planetary invasion. Even their civilian ships had weapon systems that made our military vessels look like toys. But they helped us, protested Ambassador Trill Stardancer. They cured diseases, helped with terraforming, shared their art and culture. Yes, I said, pulling up another data file. Just like they helped the pirates understand the concept of proportional response. Speaking of which, the central display showed the latest casualty figures. In just 3 days, the humans had disabled or destroyed 70% of the Crimson Nebula's infrastructure, not through overwhelming force or brutal conquest, but through surgical strikes so precise they could take out a pirate base without disturbing the civilian settlement next door. Their targeting systems alone are centuries ahead of our best technology, muttered Quantum Thought Pattern 7. How did we miss this? Because, came a new voice, you saw what you expected to see. Director Na Patel's hologram appeared at the center of the chamber. Unlike General Chen's military precision or Commander Rodriguez's battlefield prowess, she carried herself with the calm assurance of someone who had never needed to raise their voice to be heard. Humanity chose peace, she continued, because we learned the hard way that war only brings more war. We developed our military not because we wanted to use it, but because we never wanted to be vulnerable again. You didn't see our weapons because we hoped we'd never need them. The council chamber fell silent as her words sank in. These so-called primitives, these newcomers to the galactic stage, had outmaneuvered us not through deception, but through radical honesty, hidden in plain sight. Your warning beacons, High Counselor Starweaver addressed me directly. You knew. I shrugged all 4 shoulders. The humans have a concept called deterrence. The best way to avoid a fight is to make sure everyone knows exactly how bad an idea it would be to start one. Director Patel's hologram nodded. We gave you all the information our public databases contained, our full military history. Our ships carried warning labels listing combat capabilities. We even filed impact assessments for our weapon systems with the Council's Safety Committee, filed under non-critical technological developments. Nobody reads those? Techmaster Prime muttered. We do, Patel replied. Every single report from every species, because information is the best defense. And now, thanks to some rather unwise pirates, the galaxy is learning why we take information so seriously. The display shifted to live footage of another pirate base being systematically dismantled by human forces. Their ships moved like dancers in a deadly ballet. Their ground forces operated with impossible precision, and their technological superiority was no longer in question. "But what happens when this is over?" asked Ambassador Quantum Thought Pattern 7. "What happens when the pirates are gone?" Director Patel's smile was warm but somehow terrifying. "Then we go back to being exactly what we were before, peaceful explorers, traders, and scientists, because that's who we choose to be. But now, everyone knows what happens when that choice is taken from us." As her hologram faded, I looked around at my fellow council members, these supposedly advanced species who had dismissed humans as primitive because they focused on medicine instead of weapons, trade instead of conquest, cooperation instead of competition. "Well," I said, standing to address the council, "I believe this concludes my long-standing petition to upgrade humanity's technological classification. Unless anyone still thinks they're a Level 3 civilization?" The motion passed unanimously. Sometimes the best education comes from watching someone else learn a very expensive lesson. And the Crimson Nebula Pirates? They were paying full tuition for the galaxy's crash course in human nature. Have you ever watched a pack of wolves hunt? The way they coordinate without speaking, the way they move with purpose, the way they never, ever give up once they have the scent? Now, multiply that by a few thousand light years, add in technology that makes our best systems look like children's toys, and you'll begin to understand what happened next. The remaining Crimson Nebula Pirates did what any sensible beings would do when faced with an angry human military. They ran. They scattered across the galaxy, hiding in asteroid fields, ducking into nebulas, bribing their way into supposedly secure facilities. It didn't help. "Target location confirmed," announced Commander Rodriguez during one of his routine updates to the Council. "Pirates designation Beta 7 through Beta 12 neutralized. Moving to next sector." "Neutralized," squeaked Representative Blip. "But they were hiding in a quantum-shielded bunker inside a gas giant. Our sensors couldn't even detect them." "Yes," Rodriguez replied with a smile that could freeze plasma. "That's what they thought too." The humans had started using something they called hunter-killer teams, small groups of special forces operatives in powered armor that could outmaneuver our fastest ships. They moved like shadows between stars, appeared out of nowhere, and disappeared just as quickly. I watched the footage from their helmet cams during a classified briefing. The way they breached hulls, bypassed security systems, and neutralized targets would have been beautiful if it weren't so terrifying. One team, led by Captain Sarah Winters, took down an entire pirate cruiser without firing a single shot. They just walked through the ship's defenses like they weren't there. "How?" demanded Techmaster Prime during the briefing. "How are they penetrating our best stealth systems?" "Oh, that's the fun part," I said, pulling up the technical specifications. "Remember all those trade agreements where they exchanged their sensor technology for our stealth systems? Turns out they were testing our defenses every single time." The revelation hit the Council like a quantum torpedo. For years, the humans had been gathering data on everyone's military capabilities, not through espionage or theft, but through legitimate trade and technological exchange. They knew exactly how to counter every defense because they'd helped build them. "But surely they can't track everything," suggested Ambassador Trill Stardenser. "The galaxy is vast." Right on cue, General Chen's hologram appeared. "Target update, Pirate Lord R. Bloodfang located in the Dino sector. Extraction team en route. Estimated time to capture, 17 minutes. Rex had hidden himself in what we thought was the most secure facility in the sector, a private sanctuary owned by one of the galaxy's wealthiest crime lords, protected by technology from a dozen different species. The humans took it apart in 16 minutes and 43 seconds. Please note, Commander Rodriguez reported afterward, his calm smile still in place, we could have completed the operation faster, but we wanted to ensure minimal structural damage to surrounding civilian facilities. That's when it hit everyone. The humans weren't just winning, they were doing it with one hand tied behind their backs. Every operation, every strike, Every capture was conducted with surgical precision, specifically to minimize collateral damage. "These are just our peacekeeping forces," Director Patel mentioned casually during a debriefing. "Standard containment and neutralization protocols." The silence that followed that statement was deafening. If these were peacekeeping forces, what did their actual military units look like? Nobody wanted to ask. The last major pirate stronghold fell 7 days after the campaign began. The humans breached its quantum-shifted defenses, bypassed its time dilation fields, and disabled its reality anchor generators in under an hour. The pirates didn't even have time to send a distress signal. "Target location acquired," announced Captain Winters over the general frequency. "Permission to demonstrate new containment protocols." We watched in stunned silence as a single human ship, smaller than a standard cruiser, simply reached out and folded space. The entire pirate base, along with its defensive fleet, found itself neatly deposited in a holding area near Earth's military headquarters. "Space folding technology?" Techmaster Prime's voice actually cracked. "They've mastered space folding?" "Oh no," I corrected, reading the technical brief that had just been shared. "That's just their transport system. You should see what their weapons can do." "Actually, no, you really shouldn't. Some things are better left to the imagination." As the last of the pirates were rounded up, the galaxy got one final lesson in human efficiency. Every stolen item was cataloged, every victim identified, and every criminal processed through proper legal channels. The humans didn't just win, they did it by the book. A book we were all beginning to realize they had written themselves while we weren't paying attention. The Galactic Council's new guidelines regarding human interaction were, shall we say, rather pointed. Gone were the patronizing regulations about helping developing species. In their place, a simple 3-point directive. 1. All warning labels on human vessels, installations, and products are to be taken literally. 2. Any aggressive action against human citizens will be considered an act of war against Earth. 3. Never, ever assume humans are showing you their full capabilities. "Isn't this being a bit dramatic?" asked a newly appointed diplomat during the final ratification. The poor thing hadn't been around for the excitement. "Computer," I said, "please display footage from Operation Cleanup, timestamp 37. The hologram showed a human corvette smaller than most luxury yachts casually towing an entire space station through a fold in reality. The diplomat quietly withdrew their objection. Most of the pirates survived thanks to humanity's insistence on following proper legal procedures. Captain Amanda Stone's children received personal apologies from the captured pirates, along with full compensation from their assets. The medical supplies were recovered and distributed to the colonies that needed them. As for Earth, they went right back to being helpful neighbors. Their ships resumed research missions, their colonies reopened for trade, and their citizens returned to spreading their culture and technology across the stars. The only difference now was that everyone understood why their ships carried warning labels. "Business as usual," announced Director Patel during the final press conference, though we do hope this has been an educational experience for everyone involved. The education certainly stuck. These days, even the most aggressive species give human ships a wide berth. Funny how watching someone fold space like origami can affect diplomatic relations. As for me, I got promoted. Apparently, being the only ambassador who actually read human history makes you something of an expert. The council even created a new position, Special Advisor on Human Affairs. My first piece of advice: when a species puts warning labels on their coffee cups, saying the contents are hot enough to cause injury, maybe, just maybe, you should pay attention to the warnings on their warships too. But what do I know? I'm just the guy who watched a primitive species teach the galaxy's most notorious pirates a lesson about proper behavior. A lesson I'm happy to report has been thoroughly learned. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the Human Diplomatic Corps. They're sharing some of their tea, and I've learned to read the warning label very, very carefully. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories for more thrilling tales of science fiction and adventure. Stay tuned for more cosmic surprises and interstellar intrigue.